You're listening to another Conversation with Faye podcast, the voice of the untold stories. Are you ready to listen, be engaged, and experience the raw, the real, and the heartfelt conversations that leave you feeling the magic inside you wanting to escape? Are you ready to step up and allow that magic to be released and shine on the outside? Be inspired to want more in your life? To be you. Be present and be in the moment. Be curious. Now over to Faye Waterman.
Now, Marina has over 5 years' experience as a career coach who helps individuals explore opportunities, identifies core strengths and coaches them to achieve career success. Marina has worked with hundreds of individuals from admin roles right through to management and executive roles, partnering with people on their career paths and supporting them with the tools to make and achieve their career satisfaction. She works in collaboration and has worked with outplacement coach with Hudson's and ANZ, assists ANZ staff with outplacement services to transition ANZ and into new roles. Career train with Bridge Community Centre that helped unemployed and job seekers with skills and expertise to navigate the job market and get a job. And that is a huge thing. And I'm not saying it lightly, to actually apply for a position. Volunteer career and business consultant for NOMIT. The Italian Network of Melbourne Incorporated supports the Italian community growth by promoting a dialogue with the other communities and the Italian contemporary culture in Australia. NOMIT promotes a collaborative culture aimed to build bridges, spark interest and connect who is happy to contribute in the improvement of the Italian community inside multicultural environment of the city of Melbourne. Helps train Italian immigrants in finding employment or set up a business in Melbourne. Marina, welcome to the microphone.
Thank you, Faye. I'm very excited. And thank you so much for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
What we're going to do is have a conversation about who you are.
You're scaring me already.
Scaring you. Were you born here in Australia or did you immigrate to Australia?
No, I was born here in Australia and I grew up with migrant parents.
Right.
So my parents migrated here. My father migrated in 1952.
Right.
And my mother migrated in 1961. And of course, I was born in 1963. And therefore, I definitely grew up in the Italian culture. My first language was Italian, not English. So when I went to school, I struggled to assimilate because I couldn't speak the language. But over a period of time, of course, we pick up very quickly, as children do. Before I've grown up, so I've grown up very Italian. I speak Italian. I also speak my parents' dialect. Unfortunately, I've lost both my parents. My mum passed away this year. And so therefore that heritage, and hence why I felt very compelled or very excited to work with NOMIT, because I thought being from an Italian culture and having to assimilate in a foreign country for my parents who could not speak a word of English. And 55, 60 years ago was a very different Australia than it is today. And so you need to, Australia, I give Melbourne a lot of credit. It now embraces diversity. Back then, these first migrants were not treated as well and they assimilated in very hard and difficult conditions.
They used to call them
wogs. I still call myself a wog.
Do you?
Yeah. To me, it's an endearment. I don't take any offence to that. I think it is who we are and I love it. And it's also a connection to the past for me, definitely. Yes, it's just interesting because when you're in Australia, we call us, I might say, yes, I'm Italian. However, when I'm overseas, I'm very patriotic Australian. Yes, I'm Australian. Yes. I don't even think about being Italian. So it's interesting how it's inbred.
How you've connected.
To the country.
Yes, and it is a beautiful country.
Oh,
with so many opportunities.
Yes.
Okay, so you were born here in Australia. You had immigrant parents.
Yes.
Do you have siblings?
Yes, I do. I have two sisters.
Two sisters, older or younger than you?
They're younger than me, so I paved the way, unfortunately, in my family because as an older generation where you're a teenager living in a different way to how they grew up or what they know. So going to school and meeting friends and having all those outlets was just so foreign to my parents that they would sometimes disagree with what we were doing. So there was a lot of disagreements.
Because they didn't understand what the culture was about. They came here not knowing English, living in a country, finding work, doing things that they weren't familiar with but finding it difficult to connect or communicate, and then not understanding what the culture of kids growing up is like would have been really difficult for them.
It was extremely difficult. The other thing that's really important is my family came from the south of Italy, which is very much, farming. So they didn't have the opportunities that the northerners had. Yes, we do have northerners here from Italy. However, the southerners you'll see a lot more. So you'll always hear they're from Sicily, Calabria, Naples, places like that. Now, they come to Australia because they want a better life. They can't find work. They are very impoverished. They arrive in Australia and work extremely hard doing any job that's available. My father he ironed, he ran a bar, and then he worked in the railways. My mum worked on making jumpers at home and in the factories.
Did she knit, or was she using...
She was a machinist.
She was
a machinist.
There's a skill in that.
Definitely.
Absolute skill in that.
But they're labouring jobs.
Yes. But, someone has to do that.
I'm very proud of what my parents did. They worked extremely hard. The pressure, what happened with that sort of pressure is their aim is to create an opportunity for their children.
Yes.
However, their children, if they want to play or not take on that opportunity, it becomes like, I came to a country where I couldn't speak the language and I've achieved so much. You are being educated in this country. You can speak the language. The expectation of you succeeding is really high from them. So it's managing those expectations as well. Because, yes, I went to university and yes, I did well for myself. However, there are a lot of kids that didn't want to do any of that.
Yes.
And there would be a lot of pressure.
Was there not the encouragement for those kids that didn't do well, or was it just confusion for them to know where they really belonged?
It's a bit of both. The migrant parents were like, if it was like my father-in-law with my husband, my father-in-law expected my husband to be a politician. He expected him to be a lawyer or a doctor. Many migrants wanted their children to be doctors or lawyers. And some people weren't capable of doing that.
And to achieve something that they never achieved because they wanted them to do well and have the things that they didn't have.
Correct. It was all well intended.
Yes.
And it was all driven from a good heart. However, it is really hard to live up to those expectations when they're sort of driven all the time. And in some cases, it can impact the individuals very badly. I think there is, as I said, there is a bit of confusion, but we tend to then fight our way through that, or we don't actually work through that. It's like quite arguments around, no, this is what I'm going to do, and very much standing up for yourself and saying, it's okay, Mum and Dad, that's what you want me to do, but this is what we want to do. Now, I worked in a bank, so I was a favourite. Even though I had a difficult upbringing, the fact that I worked in a bank, and a bank job in Italy was like government, was like the best thing you could do.
Right.
It was really great for my parents that I worked in a bank. The fact that I worked in a bank in Australia is no big deal. There was longevity. But working in a bank was really great for them. It was like, wow, my daughter's done well. But my sister did not want to do any of that. She had a bit of pressure put on her because she didn't want to go to university. She wanted to just go straight to work. So it was like, what? Aren't you going to do something? But she's ended up having 3 beautiful children and ended up taking a different career path. So, I think it's just that expectation, and we as migrant children trying to manage that and ensuring that we stay intact through that process.
That is a very difficult thing, isn't it? Because you're torn between the respect of your parents and also that wanting to do something different and be someone that don't want you to be. That torment inside you the torment would be great. Thank you for listening to this short snippet of A Conversation with Faye. There is still so much more to hear, so please head over to hear the full podcast using the link below.